the Forged and Unbroken podcast.
With your event, I mean, it's safe to say, like, you had the polar extremes, right? I mean, I don't want to, I'll let you, like, tell your story, but to go from, you know, where you have the culture and the standard operation, SOGs to be default aggressive and go in and fight these fires, pull people out, you're going from one end to the other, right? All within a 24-hour shift. And most people don't experience that maybe in their lifetime, and you're getting this in one 24-hour trick. So if you could, I don't want to take anything from you. If you could, whatever you're comfortable telling, start breaking it down for us.
You're talking about January 22nd, 2022. We had a line of duty death, firefighter Ben Polson. I kind of want to start without going into the whole story. It was like any other line of duty death. The fire came in daytime around lunchtime, which is rare for us. Chris will tell you most of our fires are at night or early in the morning. Like, we don't have a ton of mid-afternoon fires. It's just kind of how the city works. The first in companies were on the street coming back from another run. The 13s, where Ben was assigned, saw the fire, and they were turning on the block by the time it was dispatched. So it goes back to what Chris was saying earlier. We're usually stacking companies. You don't have to operate very long by yourself. So with most line of duty deaths, there's going to be a bunch when the NIOSH report comes out. We were riding some companies short because they had training going on. You can't not train, but we had companies out of the area at a class, including the rescue squad. We were riding with 5. I think about half the companies on the still and the first alarm were riding short due to a tick class, which same thing, you can't not train. So 13s, before we even got there was a significant building collapse. It was a 2.5-story brick, so the top half story was wood frame and the brick, 2 stories of brick. Basically what happened, they did a quick search of the first floor. They made the second floor. They were hitting fire, realized there was more than they could get, and they were backing out. Fortunately, the acting officer moved to this landing on the second floor, and when he was pulling the line out, helping the nozzleman who had the line open as he was retreating, the third floor, the roof came down to the third floor, and the third floor came down to the second floor, trapping Ben on the second floor there. So our first clue when we were responding, we were at the store. We had just left the store. Fire came out. We saw the smoke. Pretty good header from across the city. We probably had a 8-minute response or so. We got in front of Barnes on our hospital there on Kings Highway, and we heard 13C, you got to open mic. 13C, you got to open mic. Also, back then, it's not so much anymore because we changed radios to the apexes with the recess buttons and all that. Mm-hmm. You would always hear emergency alert tones and open mics pretty much every fire, just because we had police radios for years instead of fire radios. Didn't think anything of it at that time. And then shortly thereafter, a very sharp captain said, 24A fire alarm, we got a collapse. I don't even think he said collapse. We got one firefighter trapped inside the building. Need a second alarm, dispatch the second rescue squad. So we immediately, Tim, he'll come up again. We started game planning. We were short a guy. I said, hey, I'm going to take these tools. Tim, bring the RIT bag. And we basically came up with a game plan. Our driver, Johnny, probably had the truck on 2 reels the rest of the trip. Normally, we parked the squad down the street out of the way. We took the block, got as close as we could. We were probably where a ladder truck should have been, but we had firemen trapped. And we stepped off the truck, and I remember looking at Tim, and I said, we're going to go get this motherfucker. I don't know who it was. And he said, yep, let's go. We went in the front door after I took a peek down the Bravo side, and ended up, there was all sorts of heroic stuff. Guys were busting their balls trying to get to Ben. We didn't know where he was. We had a false report at one point that he was in the basement, like there was a collapse, and he fell all the way to the basement. Tim ended up making the basement. He wasn't down there. Ended up getting the whole first floor searched. Got to the second floor, and there was no progress made from when we went in to get that line advanced anymore. When we got off the truck, like when a building collapses on outside stance, the fire shoots, 30, 40 feet up in the air. It was kind of like that. But by the time we got up to the steps, I think it kind of had compacted down and, wasn't super hot. I don't ever remember being hot. We were able to get some companies out of the way, kind of see where we got. I ended up on the line with another great nozzleman. I won't say his name because he's not big to the spotlight, but he ended up with the line and ended up being me, him, and Tim. We called for a ladder because there was so much debris we couldn't make the second floor from where we were at. Tim and I breached a wall, and then the porch we were on started collapsing, or the landing we were on started collapse. I was able to give him a boost through he came up the ladder. I basically just shoved him in a hole in the wall and then started digging to make room for Jeff and I to get in there. And then after digging for what felt like forever, Jeff was able to climb over a wall and get in. That's the other Jeff. I accidentally mentioned his name. And then I was able to get in behind him. Big takeaway there is we were trying to work and dig through, and firemen were trying to come up, and people kept bumping into us. And about the third or fourth time someone bumped into me, I went to say, hey, stay off the stairs in case we got to get out, give us some room to work, was actually the acting officer, Ben's acting officer. And I asked him, I go, where was Ben? And this was pretty far into it, maybe 15 minutes into us operating. And he pointed probably where Ben actually ended up being. I was able to crawl up there, and I ran into that other firefighter, Jeff, and said he's got to be somewhere down this hallway. And maybe 30 seconds later, I heard him, hey, I think we got him. I was able to push up and see. The three of us were sitting there, and I'm like, are we sure it's him? Like, it's not someone else in here? Like, because he was completely buried. And they're like, yeah. So kind of relayed some information face to face with the chief, and me and Tim proceeded to struggle to dig Ben out. As far as like big thing, at one point we were all out of air. I remember seeing like one guy that Jeff didn't have his face piece on. I'm like, man, how the hell is he breathing up here? It's pretty tight. We were blessed that the roof was off, so we had one big vent hole, but everything was coming up from underneath. So it was like being on top of where all the smoke was coming. And probably 30 seconds after, I'm like, man, how are they breathing? I suck my face piece to my face. And I teach red and air management and all that stuff. I never heard my vibro alert. I never looked. I didn't really care, to be honest. I totally see how when you get in these situations, there's multiple maydays. We were just lucky. Like I said, the roof was off, so I just took my face piece off, and we kept working. The guys were trying to help. So at points, they even turned on a master stream on us from above. We had to call and get that turned off. Without getting into too much details, it took about we were there about 8 minutes after dispatch. Took us 20 minutes to find where Ben was at in the building, and it took us 20 minutes to get him out, packaged, and out into the street in an ambulance. So, yeah, that was pretty much the fire. So I'll let you ask some questions and answer them to the best of my ability.
Sure. That, I mean, absolutely incredible. I can certainly relate to some portions of your story, just the amount of curveballs that you're getting thrown, having to breach walls, deal with the collapse. Like you're throwing the toolbox at this and using, this isn't just like a one trick scenario here. Like you're doing so many things. It's like kind of getting put through like almost like a confidence course that some people might train on, where, you know, you don't just go in and get a guy. Like all the different evolutions of training and Mayday and operations are all kind of happening at once, and you're having to manage all of them. There's a handful of things. The first thing, like, I guess mindset, like physical self, and then mental mind state. I'm sure there's tunnel vision happening at some point, and then you're also saying you're checking out, like you don't have any idea what's going on with air. Looking back, hindsight being what it is, do you feel like your training experience played into the way you needed it to, for tunnel vision happening in the right ways and disregarding all the extra noise and bullshit? Because sometimes people will just like, they'll start doing other side tasks that don't matter because they're letting too many things overwhelm them. And then how is your physical self also? Like that's a shit ton of work. And if you could just talk about those two things first.
Yeah. So I may not look at, I played college football, even though I don't consider myself a collegiate athlete, but I CrossFit. I'm a big fan of CrossFit and how that puts you in the red and operating there.
Hell yeah.
Shout out to Extra Mile Fitness here. And so first off, with the tunnel vision, we had tunnel vision at parts, but the weird thing about it, I think Chris alluded to it, I remember every detail.
Yeah.
I remember like where doors were. I remember where collapse piles of debris were, who I saw where. I remember pretty much, it was like the whole thing was in slow motion.
So you're much more in a flow state than tunnel vision.
Yeah,
like in a healthy way.
Except for the air. Yeah, except for the air. And I think it has to do with so I take to heart when we went to a rescue squads that I follow the history of rescue companies, and the first one being Rescue One in 1915, I think, in FDNY. Our Rescue One was in the 40s, and like Chris said, we were in the 60s. That our job was to rescue firemen. Like that's why we're there, is to make firemen safer. And people ask, well, why aren't you always the RIT team? Because you're not going to get the caliber of people to go stand around at fires. So it's kind of an unwritten rule, except for the two guys on the roof. We're in the building to make it safer and be forward deployed to rescue firemen that are jammed up. Hence why if the chief calls everyone out of the building, you'll see the rescue guys step to the side with their ticks and make sure everyone gets out, and they'll come out last. A lot of times, with the exception, maybe the first in company officer or whatever, get that. But you'll see our people go to the side, get everyone out, do a quick search of the floor, and then come down. We're forward deployed as a resource for the chief to be his eyes and ears and to make the members operating inside safer. And I went to a rescue company planning to have to rescue firemen. And, all of our training throughout the month, unless we have a new guy where we're really hitting the technical rescue side of the job, because we only bring experienced members over, so we don't have to teach them how to be firemen. We pretty much divide our training up between, rescue training, fireground training, and rescue and firefighters. That's what we practice. So I said it tongue in cheek when we get off the truck, like, hey, we're going to go get this, whoever was trapped. And we planned on it. I planned on getting them out and then talking to whoever it was, and we didn't know at the time who it was, in the ambulance, like, yeah, now return the squad now, bitches, kind of like, you always want to send us back, but you need us. Unfortunately, that's not what happened that day. But as far as the fitness, and everybody knows you got to be prepared for the job, and it's a constant struggle for me with ups and downs and being a bigger guy myself. But I think the mental fitness of it is equally as important. if you're going to be on a RIT team or on a rescue company, or some places have special operation trucks, or they only have a truck and 3 engines. Like if you're going to be on the specialty apparatus at your department, that's the mindset you need to have.
Hell yeah,
man. That's a big one that was the biggest challenge when I got to the rescue. Jeff got to the rescue a couple years before I did. Was the pacing of myself with Jeff hasn't really said it yet, but to go to 1 fire a day that's like a slow day. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many fires we go to, but enough would be the number. So when you go to work expecting multiple fires, like being like CrossFit doesn't even touch it. I don't know what kind of fitness is out there, but I haven't, and Jeff will agree with this. After like number 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know what there is capable of training you to that level. And like we can't just show up tired, because when something doesn't get done, like Jeff already alluded to, that it's our job now. We don't have tasks. All right, our crew of 6 is assigned by positions, right? 2 go down, 2 go in, 2 go up. Up might be the floor above the fire. Up might not be the roof. So you could be doing 3 different things. All right, you get off the truck with 4 tools. That's not weird.
Yeah.
All right, we scabbard a tool. You have a hook and a Halligan in one hand and a saw in the other. That's normal. All right, so because you might be doing, oh, by the way, you might be throwing some ladders in between there somewhere. So you're a Swiss Army knife. So like, man, it's so hard to explain to someone, like when it comes to physical fitness, like I would consider myself in okay shape. And I still get smashed routinely, like how do you, like, you don't want to overdo it on the first couple fires or the first fire of the day.
Sure.
And then here's another thing too, is like, we're not packing line. We're not refilling our water tank. Like if another fire comes in, and this happens a lot, who do you think's the first in service and around the corner and out, right? Like, there is almost like back to back fires, or a night like July 4th, to where it's just fire until you go home.
Right.
It's like, how do you even prepare for that? I don't know. I don't know how you prepare for that. It's something that you just gotta have some sort of physical discipline to really govern yourself. Hydrate. Preparation is really the answer.
Yeah, sure.
You see all of us, we're smashing Pedialites all day. We have a cooler of Pedialyte,
yeah,
and everyone has a gallon jug of water, and we're really deliberate of how we eat. A lot of our members are, like Jeff said, we all do CrossFit, where we wake up in the morning and someone's running at 5 a.m. Like that's a normal thing. I think, and that's just because that's required.
Yeah.
And if you don't bring that level of preparation to the table, what do you think you're going to be like after the 4th or 5th fire for your day?
Man, there are so many things that you all have said that I just love the sentiment, man. I don't mean to be cliche here, but like, no one is coming. It's up to us. Like that is you all. And when you go into your shifts with that mindset of, we're kind of the last line here, right? Everything has to be dialed in. Then you start wrapping your entire shift's culture around that, right? So for Jeff, like it absolutely seems like it's flow state.
Yeah, and I'm not as well read as this stuff as you and Chris. I could just go off my experiences from that day, but it for us it was mindset. There's people that absolutely would not go in. My wife's in the kitchen, so she'll probably hear this, but if you're not thinking about the mission at hand, which we signed up to do, rescue firemen, if you're thinking about your family at home or anything else, like, I don't think you're doing the job right necessarily. She's great. I was a fireman before we got married, and I have 2 kids, and they're the most important thing for me, but she knows when I'm at work, and, I talk to her, sometimes during the day, but usually at night with the kids. And rest of that, she knows where I work. I mean, it doesn't mean I want to do anything reckless or take a chance of not going home. But in a situation like that, certainly, like, I'm like, man, we were sitting on the porch across the street, kind of taking a breath, and we'd coming out, like I couldn't really undo my SCBA buckles or the buckles on my coat. It took about 5 minutes to get feeling back in my hand, and there was a whole list of things we learned that I'm sure you'll ask and we'll get into. But the three of us are sitting on the porch across the street, kind of looking at the building as they're just pounding it with master streams. And Tim goes, hey, probably getting on the news. We should probably call the wives. And I'm like, yeah, probably should. And Jeff's a senior man. He's got over 30 years now and kind of old school. He goes, man, fuck that bitch. She knows I'm all right. And talking about his, I'm like, mine does not know that. So I actually called her during the day. We went to the truck real quick and called her during the day, and she missed the phone call and called me right back, because usually I don't call during the day because she knows what's up. And I'm just kind of told her, like, hey, you're going to hear some bad things, but I'm good. And all the members from the squad are good. If you could text the wives, they have a little squad wives group chat thing. Text the wives, let them know we're all good, but it's not good. And news travels so fast. I think by the time I picked up my phone, I already had like 47 texts and 30 missed calls, and Ben probably had just left the scene maybe 10 minutes before. So that's kind of how that went.
Yeah, sure. I certainly feel that it's one of the fastest modes of communication with the fire department. Like your phone blows up within minutes, and it's just incessant for a little while. It absolutely sounds like you were in a flow state though, and your training and education and experience all culminated in that moment for you to operate the way that you did. Asking a hard question, was Ben still alive? Like, were they working him to get him to the hospital?
No, that actually came up. I'm not sure. There's two different stories out there about, like, he was killed instantly. He wasn't killed. I don't know that answer. I do know I had hope until I was able to get across the debris to the second floor. I had hope of finding them in a void. And when the radio traffic will come out, I actually gave a report to the chief that we had a complete collapse of this on the second floor. And knowing enough from all, I'm a member of Missouri Task Force 1, FEMA, all the structural collapse stuff. I knew enough that it was a complete pancake collapse. There's no voids, and it was a recovery at that point. It didn't slow down our effort.
Sure.
When we got to him, and once it was confirmed, we had to take control a couple times and calm people down and get the area cleared back. And fortunately, eventually, a hook and ladder captain worked his way up there, because we were kind of all spread out. I was with my partner. That's kind of how we operate. And my captain was doing something else somewhere, and then ended up taking control of the stairs when we needed it and not letting people upstairs. So it was pretty much the three of us and a couple other people from Hook and Ladder 6 that came in to give us a hand and get them out. And then, there was the deputy chief since retired, but I felt so bad for him. It was his last month or so on the job, and he was actually godson of Ben. And oh
man,
at some point we stopped using the radio. We were crawling back and forth because we were up on a landing and we were close enough. And I asked for some sheets, and it was relayed from the chief, like, "No, we're ready to work them." And I had to crawl back to the landing. I said, "Chief, send me some sheets." And he's like, "No, we're ready to work them." I said, "We're not doing that." I said, "Just send me some sheets." And then one point, it was quicker. They wanted to try and bring Ben out the front of the building on ground ladders. And that's not a normal Stokes basket down a ground ladder is not a normal operation that we practice. I mean, we do on the rescue squads as far as doing like pike and pivot or something like that. But we're like, no, we're not doing that. We're going down the interior stairs. And we ended up rolling the ladder that Tim went up and breached kind of the wall over the stairs, because the stairs we were operating on and the landing, everything was collapsing. Parts of the building were coming in on us throughout the whole incident.
Jeez. That's incredible. I have a question about some of the other units' sentiment. And what I mean is, when we had ours, we dealt with people saying, listen, this wasn't a successful rescue. Like our guy didn't make it. You weren't successful. You didn't save anybody. And with everything that we got thrown, and the fire conditions, there wasn't anything we could do to bring him back. But we managed a lot of curveballs, personal maydays, and our crew still got our guy. Is that something that you had to deal with? Is that something that you were at peace with, to be very on the nose and ask another hard question? Did you have to deal with that within the culture of the fire service? Because I know we did, and I don't necessarily blame anybody. I think at a certain point, we're just talking about, it's a difference in semantics. Was there any of that for you all?
There's always people whose stories are a little bit different than the truth.
Yep.
Or, in these stressful events, people remember things differently. Any of the naysayers we had, other than like, what are you doing operating in a vacant building? That happens a lot, and they'll never get it. And like I said, we don't do it recklessly. We're pretty fucking good. It had been since the 70s that we lost someone in a house fire. We lost a couple members in a commercial building, early 2000s, but it had been since the 70s till then that we lost someone in a house fire. And as Chris alluded to, we're slower now than they were in the 80s and 90s, but we average a fire or two a day in the city of St. Louis. Like, that's statistics. Like, we're not making that up. It's not inflating ego. And the majority of those are house fires. So the people that had the most to talk, I think, are the people that A, didn't perform, they couldn't or wouldn't, or B, they weren't there, and now they're going to question the people that did it because they're insecure with their knowledge and abilities and skill set. And that's not my fucking problem. Like, I'm pretty proud. Like, the times aren't out, so I could be a little off. We contacted and got some information, and someone's got an audio recording. It's all mixed together. Like, it's not true to time, but we were on scene, like I said, about 5 minutes after the collapse, 5 to 8 minutes. We found them in less than 20 minutes, and we had them out 20 minutes after that. So about 45 minutes after the incident, we had a member that was completely buried, freed and out of the building. And I know without a doubt, I've had several conversations with Ben's dad, that if he was alive, if he was in a void, we would have got him.
Yeah.
Like, that happened. That was outside our control before we got there. The members of Rescue Squad 2C, 28s, like 13s, the guys that weren't in the collapse, 24s, Hook and Ladder 5. Hook and Ladder 6, Squad 1 got there. There's some bad motherfuckers there. Some dudes I'm proud to work with. Now there's also people that they didn't do their job, and they know who they are for one reason or another. And I ultimately think, maybe they're training or we let them down as an institution. I don't know, but I hope that answers your question without.
No, it absolutely does. And man, Jeff, I really appreciate that. You hit the nail on the head. And I certainly feel that. The word I keep coming back to when people ask is validation. And I definitely don't mean that from an arrogant place. Your physical fitness, your training, your education, your mindset, and the attitude that you all keep and the standards you uphold validated what you were able to accomplish. And I think the people that don't hold up the end of the bargain and are also mindful of all those different facets are the ones who have not validated their training on real incidents and are left to maybe wonder why. and they maybe are second guessing themselves. So I think you said it much more eloquently than I did. No, so you absolutely did. You nailed it.
Yeah, I think you're giving me too much credit. Chris does great things. I've sat in several of his classes in the FDIC, and I just met you through Chris recently. I kind of tried the FDIC thing, did a couple classes. I don't care about the highlights. I care about the guys that I work with and the gals that I work with. They know I walk the walk and talk the talk, and I'll be there with them through anything, and that's what I care about. I don't need national fame or any of that shit. It's at the end of the day, we're all here for a short period of time. I'm just a guest in the fire service. I want to do a good job and, make my family proud and my pops. And I have a long line of firemen in my family. So if I just do a little bit better than they did, and if one of my kids want to do it, and hopefully they're a little bit better than me, but we got to get past this, getting your name out there and just do your fucking job. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Do the right thing.
About the, I'm sorry about the language.
No, it's all good. Don't even worry about it. I'm all about it. No, just do, like you said, just do the right thing.
I kind of piggyback off that question too, kind of from being in the department, from looking at from the outside in. I would say almost none. There was no negative. It was a unanimous approach, kind of like, man, that sucked. Let's look at buildings. There was a lot of, he shoulda, coulda, hindsight bias.
Always.
That's going to be that's normal.
Yep.
But it wasn't like to a detrimental effect or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there was, I'd say, a lot of, if anything, it refocused everyone's priorities on the environment that we operate in. I think with, like Jeff had said, with our, we got some of it was luck for a longer period of time. Some of it was just, we were really experienced. So vacant buildings are kind of like what Sam Hiddle describes as you like driving on ice. All right. Yeah. You can do it. Just got to do a little slower. We've had a lot of people retire. So we've lost a lot of that of experience, that safety net. So if anything, it dialed everyone's focus back in to some stuff that maybe they hadn't really paid attention to, they took for granted. So it kind of slowed some rolls on some people, maybe who were becoming a little more too overconfident in themselves. So while it was a very tragic moment, I think it in some way had a lot of beneficial outcome for the department as a whole. In some other ways, there was some non-beneficial things that happened, but for the majority of it, infighting, no, I can say never happened. Everyone took an opportunity to learn from whatever that meant to them. So we did a great training right after all this occurred, multi-battalion training, not something that happens a lot in the St. Louis Fire Department. So like, there's definitely some stuff that occurred. It was impetus of some good stuff.
Yeah.
So I will say that there was that. There's some there was some silver linings and some things like that. Also, what kind of Jeff already alluded to, and what you have talked about before, man, like we've all been on Maydays. All three of us here have been on legit Maydays, some better than others. And man, until you're in that moment, like you don't even know enough to know to have a informed opinion. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter who you think you are. You don't know how you're going to react. You have no idea. There's no plan for that. Like, if someone asked me how you plan for RIT, I would be like, get good at everything else.
Right.
Just get good at everything. Be good at all the basic skills. Get good at all those, really, because you're going to need a combination of all of those, and there are no rules. There are no rules.
Yeah. I'd like to point out we had a very elaborate game plan responding. Tim and I did, like, I'll carry the irons, you carry your hook and the rip bag, I'll carry the search rope and the tick, and the search rope, the rip bag was in the front yard, the search rope was right 5 feet inside the front door, because I kind of looked to put the rope out, and I crawled into the house. I'm like, what do I need this rope for? I've been in this house, this fire, a bunch. Like, I don't search ropes for commercial jobs, generally. And really, when it came down to it, we mainly used our hands, the hose line, and some short pieces of webbing we had in our pocket. I believe the few of us up there, I would have crawled down the freaking hallway in my underwear to get to them if I could get to them quicker. All that heavy ass 60-hour rip bottles, and you can carry all this shit. That's all bullshit. Like,
Preach,
you
man.
You got to get in there fast. You need to be a fast unit. You got to, especially, in our case, if it's a commercial building and you're in contact with the person and he says, I'm pinned, keep that air with you. You can have the same fire tomorrow with the person trapped that we had, and it could be a totally different set of circumstances. So I'm not talking absolutes. I'm talking about our experience. The RIT team needs to be fast and mobile. Yes. Once you find them, there'll be 100 motherfuckers to bring you shit. Like, we were calling for stuff. It showed up. Somebody brought it up to us. Nothing matters till you found your missing brother and friend in that building. And we want to load these RIT teams down with all this equipment, and it's just asinine to me. I don't understand it. Thank God we changed. We were kind of already in the process of changing, but all our RIT bags went to 30-minute bottles. They're more compact. I've been preaching it hard anytime I teach a class. Carry less stuff in your pockets, but have it set up for a purpose. I don't want to get off the Bend fire without saying that I think the members on the first floor and outside had it a lot harder than us, because we had a task and a purpose and a mission. And there was, 10, 15 people working below us, hooking the ceiling, putting out fire and voids, spraying water. They're basically working underneath a collapsed building. And fortunately, if we were on top, hopefully if it all went, we could have wrote it down or whatever. But I think I don't want to discredit what they did versus discredit what we did. Like, it was a team effort. Few of us ended up being at the tip of the spear, but I mean, the tip's useless without everything else that's going on. And there was a lot of real awesome firemen that did their job that day that I don't want to think that our story is any better. There's 100+ people on our job that if they switched places with any of us would have done the same thing that we did. We just were working that day. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. No, hell yeah. Thank you for saying that. I can certainly, I appreciate that sentiment. Same for me and some of my experiences. You could have flipped names and the same outcome would have happened. And that just, again, speaks to the fucking go-getting attitude of it, man. I appreciate that.
I think something that's always left out of any risk situation is how adverse and just degraded the environment that you're in is. I mean, the building that Jeff was in was, to say catastrophically deplorable would be an understatement. To put it in perspective, the building was so unsafe. They actually had to demolish the building before there was they demolished it like the same day.
Yeah, wow.
It was so unsafe. They couldn't even it was a public safety hazard for it to be standing. That was the same, nothing changed. That was the same building that Jeff and the other 50 people who were in for I don't know how long it was. At one point, there's a picture of like a wall, like literally a parapet wall busting over his head, I mean, you can go back to Nate's fire, the one that you guys operated in. Insane. The one Mayday that I've been a part of, it happened when they were evacuating the building. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
All right. When a Mayday happens, as an evacuation is occurring, there's no one else in the building. There's no water in the building. You have fire everywhere. So those are the situations that you're operating in, and no one ever talks about that. Everyone just kind of sets up some kind of like it's a bad situation and it's just a house or a building or something. What you're going into, like if you would have put the environments that all three of us were in towards some sort of like risk matrix, it would be off the chart, right? Sure. It would be almost like, it would look like a lot of people would look at all 3 of our buildings and go, suicide mission.
Don't go in there.
It would be unanimously accepted as a suicidal mission. And what's, I think, intriguing is, I don't know about Jeff. I don't think there was any injuries. There was none on mine.
We had bumps and bruises because we got taken out by a chimney coming out. It's kind of a funny story.
Oh, jeez.
And one of the captains blew a I think he tore a bicep or something, throwing a 35-foot ladder by himself. It can be done.
Yep.
But he still got the ladder up there and all that. He was off for a little while with surgery for that. But now we were coming out, something let loose, and there was 3 of us up there, and it was kind of laughed back at it now. A chimney came down, and it kind of hit me a bunch of bricks. It bent me over backwards, like in a yoga pose that someone 6'5" shouldn't be in. So I was like pinned with debris, but the landing we were on kind of let go. And Jeff, one of the guys up there, other guys up there, he's hanging on to the hose, and Tim's kind of holding on to both of us so we don't go over to the first floor. And Meat just kept saying, "Hey, let me go, let me go." He's like, "There's a hose line here. I could." And we don't know if it was after the fact or during the moment. I believe someone said, "Well, do that Chicago Fire shit and slide down it." And he's like, "Well, let me go." And you hear, like, I don't know, 5 seconds later, you hear, "Holy shit, that worked." So he slid the hose down to the first floor, and then Tim was able to get the bricks and stuff off me, and we were able to go down the roof ladder we put over the stairs because they were all burnt out. And like Chris said, I think the 3 of us came out, and there was a deputy chief that walked out right behind us, and we were the last people to be in the building.
Jeez.
Because I remember hitting the bottom of the landing. We kind of fell down the ladder that was there, kind of slid down it because it wasn't anything pretty. But he's like, "Hurry up, get out of the building." And I remember thinking in my head, like, "Holy shit, give us a little slack or fucking try it here." But yeah, came out, and this might allude to your subject matter expertise, but left was where they took beds. So there was 50 firemen that had lined the streets to shield them from the media to go to the ambulance.
Yeah.
And I went to the right, and fortunately it was just a few members of my company were over there, and my captain was there, and he was like, "You and Tim good?" Like, "Yeah, I'm good." I said, "But my hands won't work. Get my shit off." I just wanted my gear off. Like, it was all trashed, and you know how it is. I just wanted my stuff off, but my hands won't work. We have Cobra buckles for our bailouts that are built into our SCBAs, and I couldn't concentrate my fingers to hit the buckles to undo it. I couldn't undo the buckles on my clip, and I had to just kneel there and have my captain and senior man Eric came over and started helping me undo my shit because our hands wouldn't work, or my hands wouldn't work.
Just from the adrenaline,
and probably we ate a lot of smoke. And
yeah,
there's probably 15 minutes up there with no mask on. I'm not advocating that, obviously, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, hell
and,
yeah.
And that's why I point out the whole air management thing whenever we teach a class. Someone removed from the incident, a chief needs to be paying attention to what the guy's air is, because I consider myself a fairly experienced firefighter that pays attention to what's out there. I go to training, I teach. I taught 6 academy classes. I taught Ben Polson's class. I mean, he was one of my recruits that I taught, and I never knew what my air was the whole time. And someone outside needs to be paying attention to that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a valid point. And I really appreciate what you said about just streamlining everything. I think sometimes we bring way too much shit. We bring in a bucket of shit, 5 pounds of stuff or 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And that could be a detriment to us. Like you said, go in, call for what you need to, and bring the absolute, necessary stuff. And then other than that, a strong back and a fucking go-getting attitude makes a lot of these problems go away.
The complexity is just so off the charts. I don't think anything about that situation that Jeff had was normal. Nothing about that was normal. Everything from start to finish was weird, awkward, unfamiliar, and new.
Yeah.
But like, right, and that's probably the majority of really bad adverse RIT situations or maydays.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't. There's no way to prepare for that other than just to, like I said, just get good at everything.
Sure.
Yeah, have the equipment close. I'm not saying discard it. Have it close.
Absolutely.
I mean, commercial buildings are different than residential, but we're mainly getting jammed up in residents nationwide. So I think we should push to be best at that model and go from there.
Yeah,
sure.
I think a lot of it you can draw the analogy for RIT training or what we train for, what it's like is very similar to what happens when you train for like vehicle extrication, right? Like we train on this nice car that's not smashed up, and we do all these things, and then we go to the wreck, which is like this pretzel of a vehicle, and then now, well, all these techniques now aren't as easy as we thought they were, and it's all changed, right? So I think that's a very similar situation when it comes to RIT. You know, if you're doing your RIT, I mean, but then how do you recreate the complexity? I don't know. I mean, aside from compromising a lot of safety in training, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's worth it.
I think you got to do the tough things. I mean, I never put the 2 and 2 together. We were in the same academy. Chief Conley is one of my really, really good friends and mentors, and I never put together the 10 push-up thing. I didn't think about it on our day, but I do surround myself with a bunch of individuals that like to do hard, tough things. And I will stand by the fact that it was mindset that really drives in these types of situations.
Fuck yeah, Jeff. I think there's something, and I'd certainly preach it with like stress inoculation, getting your heart rate up, getting your respiratory rate up prior to a training evolution. Constantly find the things that are going to tax your upper level of skill and do it all at once. And at the end of the day,
burpees. Just do burpees.
Just do burpees, right? Just do burpees. And I love that. And I use that. But at the end of the day, you can't account for everything. So you just need to have a bunch of men and women that have the right attitude, like you said, to make problems go away, you know,
I tell you what,
environments.
I hit on it earlier on, man. So if you were to take the 2 rescue squads in St. Louis and just, if someone asked how are the people on those, it would be those people. It would just be a group of people who are intrinsically motivated to always find the better way of doing anything. If something requires 5 steps, well, they want to know how we can do it in 4. Yep. And there's no such thing as too little of a detail, right? Like Jeff said, I mean, everything on that truck, nothing is too little of a detail. Like the tires on the truck being flat are as big of a deal as like a clip on an SCBA not working. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing that's too insignificant, especially when you're going to fires on a routine basis. Everything is important. Everything. The smallest minutia matters. And so when that's your general culture of a company, man, that just facilitates itself into the people who go there. No one's there by accident. And it kind of is a self-fulfilling prophecy of a culture. And it's not just St. Louis. St. Louis is special for anything. We have friends all over the place. We obviously talk to the other rescue squads across the country. Same situation, just different name of the city. And I say that because if there's a department out there that cross-staffs a heavy rescue or is maybe on the fence about putting one into service, or they had one and they're talking about bringing one back, like, man, pull the trigger on it. You know, like you've got to have that avenue for those, like I call them 1%ers.
Yes.
For the people like Jeff said, who, when they go to work, like we're 100%. Now, when we ain't at work, it's about everything else that ain't at work.
Right.
But when we step into that firehouse, I don't care about the March Madness. I don't really care about what's on TV. We can talk about that later, but it's 100% the job right now, you know, right here, right now, what's going on, then I'll get coffee. You know?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Um,
And some people struggle with that, I think. Like, it's not a popular idea sometimes to acknowledge and nurture that 1% because everybody thinks that we should have this like level playing field. I'm all about equality, but that doesn't mean that there's an equality in performance.
no, and that's what I'm saying. That's where it's great to have an avenue
Yep.
of those people to go. If you want to be the run of the mill, good is good enough. Cool. There's a place for you. It's over here. But if mediocrity isn't your optimum, which is us, well, there's this other place. And hey, look, there's these like 9 other disciplines you have to get good at too.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so much to know here. You're never going to get good at all of it. And it's just going to be a lifelong pursuit of improvement and optimum performance. Like, who doesn't want that? I get paid for that. I literally get paid to go to work to get better because it's impossible to be good at it all.
You're
So, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's there's no, like, you can never, like, there's only, like, by the time you learn something, you've forgotten 2 other things. So,
The cool thing about our system is it's kind of self-policing.
very much so.
It's not
Nice.
it's not encouraged by the city or even the department to an extent. It kind of the members on the company take care of it, and people transferred in, and it's not for them, and they transfer out, and it's kind of cool how it just kind of works. Now, do people skate through and maybe last that shouldn't? That's human nature. I mean,
Sure.
there's people
Yeah.
that make it through Navy SEAL training that get kicked out of the Navy SEALs.
Yep.
Like, it just because you get there doesn't mean you've arrived. You gotta perform to stay. And sometimes people make it 20 years, and sometimes they make it 5 years, and they want to go do something different. We kind of take care of it ourselves, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. We've been grinding for a little while, and I want to be respectful of y'all's time. There's one other piece I want to touch on, and we'll start closing this out. A bit of a segue, though, with that line of duty. Your all's fire chief said the St. Louis City Fire Department does a job every day in buildings that many departments consider buildings we shouldn't enter. We know that people use these homes to stay warm, to provide protection against the different environments. And we get paid to protect lives. We get paid to take a risk, and it's hard to tell somebody on the street who's yelling and screaming at us that there might be somebody in there. Well, this risk might be too great. We take the risk, and unfortunately and terribly, the risk we took today wasn't worth it. We lost a firefighter. It shows the juxtaposition of what you all said of sometimes we lose these battles. Sometimes we go into these structures that a lot of other people on the outside would think, well, no, that's a vacant, or we shouldn't be dealing with this. But you all do that every day with a high degree of success, saving people's lives every year. And then sometimes we do lose these battles, and it's unfortunate. I don't want to go as far as saying that's the price we pay, but bad things happen in our profession, right? Going from that line of duty, and then within the same shift, you're pulling people out of a very similar environment, correct?
Well, the other members on scene did.
Yeah.
But yes, we had 2 other fires after that, 2 or 3 after Ben's fire. So, kind of going back to the scene, and I'll just give you the whole story on how it worked.
Yeah, please.
They wanted us to leave right away. It kind of got out what we did and who was there. And in fact, one of the chiefs came over and said, hey, you guys hop on squad 1 and go back to the engine house. Cause we were blocked in. Like I said, we parked right where we parked.
Yeah.
And, got blocked in, and they're like, take squad 1 and go back to the firehouse. They'll bring your truck back. And we said, fuck that. We're not going anywhere on that piece of shit rig. That ain't happening. Like, we're like, we'll Uber back to the engine house, and someone can bring the truck back before we go anywhere in squad 1. And they're like, so they kind of realized we weren't leaving. So they sent the other squad back. We stayed out of service. It's the only time in my career, like Chris said, whoever's assigned to the captain on our truck, as soon as the fire goes under control that we're at, the captain's partner switched back to dispatch, because if another fire comes in, we want to go. We want to go to every fire in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how squad 1 wants to too. I'm not discounting them. So that's the only time in almost 10 years I've been on Rescue 2, we went back out of service, and it was a pretty shitty ride back to quarters.
Sure.
And then they gave us 45 minutes or so to clean up. And by this time, off-duty members were in, guys on light duty were in, and I didn't have to do anything. We got off the truck. They started cleaning our tools. They took our gear. They got our spare set out of the locker, washed our gear. And the captain said, we'll meet up in 45 minutes. And we met up in 45 minutes. He's like, anyone can go home. Anyone on the first alarm, second alarm assignment, you want to go home? They're not taking your time, go home. We got guys lined up to do overtime. The brothers and sisters came out of the woodwork to help. It was
Great.
Cool to see. And we kind of talked, and I'm like, well, I knew this could happen, and what am I going to do? Go home and talk about my dead friend with my wife on the couch, or I'd rather be with the brothers. Yeah. And we sat around for a little bit. We made the decision to stay, and I'm not discounting. Members went home, not of our company, but of other companies. Members went home. I believe they made the 13s go home, and I'm not saying they were right or wrong. I don't know the answer. For me, I needed to be at work with the people who went through it. And I even called my wife and was pretty proud of her. I go, hey, if something else happens tonight to me, know that the department said I could go home, and I chose to stay. And her next answer was like, well, you're at work. Why would you come home? And I'm like, perfect. But I wanted her to know that case, because you never know.
Yeah.
We had it lined up. The O'Byrne Fireground training, Chad Daly, some of my good friends from Kansas City were in town teaching a TIC class that our guys were at. We had a brisket on the smoker. Those guys were supposed to come for dinner. And after sitting around for maybe like an hour moping around, I asked the guys, I said, hey, I'm still going to have them come for dinner if you're good with it. And it was the best thing we did, because those fellas showed up. They had desserts, ice cream, appetizers, and a bottle of something to drink when we got off work.
Yeah.
And they showed up, and they were great. We kind of went through our thing. They've experienced the same thing in Kansas City within the last couple of years, and it went from instantly like feeling sad to training exercise. Hey, we did this, it didn't work. They did that, it didn't work. They got their own story to tell with that, but it was really, really good for us. And then they left, and our next run was like a midnight, and it was for fire in a plastic factory. And I'm like, holy shit, can we maybe catch a elevator run or something? It ended up being a piece of machinery, no big deal. And then about 2 or 3 in the morning, we caught a fire, and it came in fire in a house, not closer than where Ben's fire was. So we ended up being second or third. 17s went on the scene, 2.5-story heavy fire showing on the second floor, and probably came back 30 seconds later. We got people trapped on the first floor. We're forcing doors and bars to get them out. So we got there pretty quick, and we're hustling down the street, and I'm walking through the front yard, and I kicked something, and I look down, and it's the first in line. It's just sitting there like a beacon of hope in the front yard. It never happens. With fire blowing out of the top floor, I'm like, well, all right, I'll take it. And I picked it up. Well, they got so saturated with first in task of making the rescues, the line just kind of ended up there. They were pulling people out of the windows and stuff. And I picked up the line. I'll never forget we're masking up on the porch. Same type of building Ben was in, fire blowing out of the floor above us. And the 13's driver, another young guy, our plugman came up, our 17's plugman came up. He's like, Wes, I'm right here. Can I have the line? And I looked at him. I'm like, if you hurry up, I'll give it to you. And he takes the first move to mask up, and I go too slow, and I took the line up the steps. We made the turn, pretty good fire, and it ended up being I had the nozzle. Tim was backing me up, and the other guy from the 10s that was with us ended up right on the line. So the three of us pushed down and put out a fire maybe 8 hours later from same type building we had. And the guys from the 17s and the 10s and 29s, they did a hell of a job getting all the people off the first floor and making all the rescues. But we didn't make any rescues. We picked up for what was slacking in that particular fire. someone needed to take that line. And we were just same people. Smoke cleared. It was the same people that were there with Ben pushing down the hallway, putting out a fire 8 hours later. And I remember calling, I don't know if you know Mikey Torres, he's a good friend of mine, recently retired from Chicago, and he's out in Colorado now. But I called him because I know he's personally dealt with a couple line of duty deaths in his career. And I called him the next day. I'm like, dude, I don't know how I would do if I had to wait 6 months before my next fire after that fire.
Yeah,
It would, the doubt and the self-doubt would drive me up the wall. Fortunately, we didn't have to wait very long, and all was good. It was just as fun as the first one, albeit a little slower. You're kind of waiting for the whole building to come down after that. But we went in there and we got it, and those guys on the 17s, you know, they saved 6 people, I think, out of that first floor, 5 or 6.
Wow.
Was Jeff, wasn't that one through the roof too when it came in?
They pulled us out. We knocked it down. They pulled us out, rightfully so. The Chiefs were a little nervous. Let's not lose more people. We had it most of the way put out, though. On a normal day, if we hadn't lost someone, they would have let us stay in there and get it. But they pulled us out. We knocked it most of the way down, went back in and mopped it up, and we were ready to go home after that.
Man, that's a hell of a day. I know me and my guys felt that too, wanting to feel like you need to get back on the horse. And we were just talking about how we could go through that. And unfortunately, it was like we're just within the week, we had another small but decent fire with, you know, going back to what you said, reports of people trapped, kids running back into the home. But it was that thing that we all needed for sure. Same thing. I couldn't imagine going through a dry spell and just playing the what if game. So I certainly, that resonates with me. Coming out of that,
I do want to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, please.
I do want to say that I feel like we're not very experienced with losing members in the line of duty like that. And there's plenty of faults with any big city, any fire department. We all have our issues.
Sure.
I do want to say I felt like the department handled it pretty good for the most part. They let members go home, didn't take their time that needed to go home. They had no problems filling overtime. Some of the members directly involved, you know, they took months off, and the department covered them. I would want to say, I can't remember if Ben was the first day or the middle day of the cycle, but we came back 2 days later, and they had a big debriefing. And I kind of feel bad at my feelings, and I know the other people that were with me, I was kind of an asshole with it to myself, not to anyone else, but we're sitting there at this debriefing, and I thought it was a debriefing, but it really just ended up being the critical incident stress, like, here's what to expect meeting.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's a debriefing. And like people that weren't on the fire were there. The janitor from headquarters is in there crying. Like all these people I'm like, dude, do I have to fucking stay here? I'm like, what are all these people doing? They weren't even there. Like, what are they crying about?
Yeah,
you know, and that was wrong on my part, probably just being angry with the whole thing. But I remember talking to some of Ben's classmates that weren't working there. And like I said, I taught their class, and they were all shell shocked. And I had a conversation with them afterwards. I said, you think all that bullshit the instructors and myself told you in the academy, like, was just made up? Like, we were trying to scare you into quitting? Like, the job's pretty safe. It can be safe. We do all our training and experience to be as safe as possible. There's far more dangerous jobs out there. But there are once or twice a year where if you're going to put on the shirt, like, you got to do firemanship. And, you know, there's no way around it. And that's what we get paid the whole year's salary for, is for those few moments. And it can be dangerous, you know. And I told them right there, I said, if you guys can't accept that, then perhaps this isn't for you. And I would say that to anyone. Like, the job is not for anyone. We can sugarcoat it all you want and make these flyers up. I think everyone deserves the opportunity to try, but we shouldn't keep people around that can't do the job. I mean, it happens everywhere in the country. People that have no business getting on fire trucks are getting on fire trucks everywhere in the country right now. Yeah. And we got to get away from that. You know, I think everyone should have the opportunity, and it should be a fair process to get in, but we need to be able to tell people, hey, this ain't for you.
Yep.
And there's no shame in that.
Absolutely.
No, there's no shame in that. And, you know, like the academies that me and Jeff have taught, when we ring a bell to ring out, all right? And interesting thing is we get 6 bells for a line of duty death in the city of St. Louis. When someone quits the fire academy, they ring six bells because they're done. They're that level of done, all right, with the fire academy.
Yeah.
So it's a very symbolic washing out when you drop from our fire academy. And we don't put the arm around them and say, come on, hang on. No, it's thank you for being brave enough to know this isn't for you. So you don't become a liability to yourself and everyone else a week, 20 years from now, you know? So that's something that we do a pretty good job at on the front end. But it's, man, like what Jeff was saying is so true, but at the same time, it's so difficult. You don't know how you're going to be. There's no physical attribute or characteristic about how you're going to be in your moment, all right, that moment. You know, Nate Flynn's moment, Ben Polson's moment. Like, you don't know. You can't look at someone and go, they're going to perform, or someone else to go, they're not going to perform.
Yep.
There's just nothing about a person to look at them and to get an idea, right? To know how a person's going to perform, whether it's called grit or perseverance, which is so hard, right?
You can't test for that.
Like, and what's crazy is you don't even know.
Yeah.
You don't even know how you're going to perform. You know, it's an unknown territory in your reality, unless you've come from the military, you know, where you've been in a situation under fire or something like that, or you maybe came from a rough neighborhood to where gang life was your life. That wasn't that wasn't me. You know, I can probably say that wasn't Jeff. You know, so until we're put in those moments, like, we don't even know how we're going to perform. You know, we can say what we want to say. We can.
I disagree to the point.
Man, I just don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to your values and how you're raised. You can prepare a lot, but I've seen people, and you've seen people break too, who are like, never would have thought in 1,000 years that person would have broke.
I would say initially, yes. You don't know for a while, but running calls with people day in, day out, going to the fires that we do, you get a pretty good idea of who's going to be there and who's not. Like, I could have probably made a list of the high performers and at our fire personally, and it could be different with what you guys experience. And the people that were high performers were high performers. That didn't just start that day.
Yeah.
And people that were maybe below that or useless the rest of the time were useless the day of that fire. I guess to your point, like that high risk, the Mayday or, you know, person trapped, yeah, there might be some surprises, but for the most people, zebras don't change their stripes, right?
Yeah.
Like it's why we're aggressive at vacant buildings, and every run we go to. I mean, we're freaking aggressive at elevator runs. Some people think we probably do those, but that's just how we are. Like, you can figure that out beforehand through training and your other experience, or you're probably going to be sorely mistaken if you think you're just going to perform when you're put in that environment without any effort, or at least taking the opportunity to prepare in advance.
Yeah, I guess like you're saying, like, it takes some requisite knowledge. You know, like if I just lined up 10 random guys and said, you know, pick the guy who's going to, like, from scale these guys from 1 to 10, 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. Like, you know, however they look, there's no look, right? There's, you know, just because like the muscly bound in shape dude, that doesn't mean anything. It really does.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with
it's, because I'm constantly surprised at some of the stuff, especially like you know how we operate with, we have some subbers that come over, and because we have like everyone else, manpower crisis, so we have some people who aren't familiar with the rescue squad that may be on the rescue squad that day, and so they're put on, I mean, not to their fault, they're put into some situations that they are absolutely unfamiliar with. One of those situations would be like a very nasty steep roof on the 2.5 floor, like way up nasty roof, someone may have never been on a roof before, but today's their day.
Yeah.
And they're your partner. So, and I've seen some really, really, I'm not going to call it heroic or anything, but people come through or operate really well under something I know they've never done, surprisingly well. And there's someone who I never thought in a million years would be that person, right? And then Jeff has seen the opposite. I've seen the opposite of someone who, they're checked out. Nope, not for me. Ain't doing it. Not going to happen. Ain't going to do it. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? That
just goes to the people, not just St. Louis, but that sign up for this job. The most part, the majority of the people want to do a good job.
Yes.
They may not have the experience that we have going to as many fires. They may have shitty organizations that don't train them, but most people don't go to work saying like, I'm going to be a shit bum today.
Yep. Right.
Like,
yeah.
I'm going to.
Yeah. No one wakes up and says, man, I can't wait to suck today.
Yeah. The majority of the people that get into this profession from traveling all over the state of Missouri, I'm not international like you guys, but I've traveled all over the state of Missouri, and people want to do a good job, whether they're paid, they're volunteer, like whether it's the wife that wants to drive the fire truck because her husband's involved in the fire service, or the person that really should have retired several years ago, but there's no manpower on his volunteer department. They all got a job and they want to do a good job. Whatever their wheelhouse is, people get in this profession to make a difference and do a good job. It's up to us as instructors to bring them up to our level.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then sometimes even when you try to bring them up to that level, like you said, sometimes like, hey, this thing still isn't for you. Like I've gotten as creative as I could possibly be, and this thing still might not be your gig, or maybe you need to check out a different assignment. And that's just about having an honest conversation. Yeah.
Sure.
No, when we're teaching the academy classes, like my first class, I wanted to coddle people and like hang around, and we probably talked people into quitting or staying that should have quit, and it ended up backfiring, or they're no longer with the firm today.
Yeah.
But I have no problem telling people like, hey, you shouldn't go into this fire. Like if you're on a volunteer department and we're teaching, like I'll tell the chief, like, hey, let them drive, let them do medical care, like let them do something else, because I realize everyone needs people. But like from our department, the paid department, like we're not begging anyone to stay. Like I don't care what kind of manpower crisis we're in. Like I still need you to freaking nut up or chesticle up and crawl down a hallway and be there with us. Like that's all I ask for. I don't care anything else. If you're good at the job and you put in the effort, you're going to get effort out of me, and I'm not going to let you down. And hopefully you don't want to let me down.
Oh yeah. Jeff, I know maybe it's the football days, man, but if I could just put you in front of like a lineup in front of every firehouse in the nation and just get everybody amped for the day, the fire service would be in a much better place. Man, just going from, all your stories going from a line of duty to rescuing and almost completing that full circle, like bandwidth paradigm shift of the fire service. Like those are the polar ends of extremist scenarios that we deal with, and having all that within one shift is insane.
It's about 12 hours actually. But
12. Yeah, that's incredible, man. It's absolutely incredible. I can't thank you enough for just taking the time out for me. I mean, we're going over 2 hours now, and if there's anything that I have missed that you want to make sure that we grind in on, like, please do so now.
No, I just want to reiterate that, like, Chris and I, and Chris being one of them, we work with some really, really good firemen.
Yeah.
I mean, we are blessed to have good companies. There's way smarter and way more experienced people out there than me. And my experiences are my experiences. I own them. But I didn't make any of this shit up. I learned it from watching podcasts or read books, or the senior men that came before us. Like 1857, we've been a professional paid fire department. Like no instructors are making up new shit. We're just rephrasing it and rewriting it down to sell some more books. So like pick the right senior men, and this job, and I have been blessed, and I have mentors on my fire department and not on my fire department. I mentioned Torres and Chad Daly. I call them. They're not St. Louis firefighters. They're people I can call and like run stuff by them. And I know Chris has the same. We're just blessed to be at a fire department that goes to a lot of fires. Probably some of the best firefighters you've never heard of.
Sure.
Because they're at some town that doesn't burn, which is a good thing. I'd much rather have the city be rich and not go to fires every day and, you know, everyone be safe, but that's not the world Chris and I work in. So I'm just going to be the best. I don't like using the word ghetto, but for this, ghetto fireman I can be.
Yeah.
And then I'll try and pass on what I learned to others, and we just all should want to leave it a little better than we found it.
Yeah, I think to Jeff's point, first of all, you know, there's no such thing as a good cop in Mayberry, right? So, right, I mean, but just because you go to fires, we'll just call that experience, that is not the same as expertise. And the one thing that Jeff is alluding to is, man, we have at the very minimum, meaning the most mediocre, bare minimum, we have experience. But then above that, we have what Jeff and what kind of like the rescue company culture, and that's expertise. So when everything falls in between that bracket, what you have is like what Jeff said, some of the most phenomenal, and they have no idea. They have no idea how great they are. No clue. Some of these guys have no idea how freaking phenomenal they are in advancing a hose line into 2 floors, not 1 room. 2 floors, 5 to 7 rooms of fire, and knocking it out. That's just run of the mill for them. And then that's not even the expertise, man. Yeah. The expertise is kind of like what me and Jeff have been on this whole time. Going to work, guys are checking their packs with their gloves on. You know, that's normal. With the pack off, out of the brackets, checking all the belts. Like I said, there's no such thing as a small detail because on our company, man, it is just so over the top. You know, if the tick battery isn't full, like I'm hearing it from Jeff. You know, like we're all like one shift polices the other shifts. You know, if something's out of place, if your battery is low on your radio, you know, like if your tank is a tick below full, that's not acceptable. You know, I don't care what the FPA says, I don't care what the department says. Full's full. Yeah. There's only 2 types of bottles, full and empty. Like full and not good enough.
Right.
You know? So I don't care about any of the numbers in between. So that's the expertise. So that's the ceiling that we're constantly pressing each other up against. And I mean, you come into work and everyone's in a book, everyone's studying on something. I mean, everyone's coming back from a conference, guys own training companies, guys teach on the side. Then there's a physical fitness. Mm-hmm. Guys do what you do. You know, I mean, they're into that 1,000%. So like Jeff said, man, it's a really good place to be surrounded by some just 1,000%ers. Whether they even know it or not, they have no idea how good they are, which is, I think, awesome.
I love
because
that.
They're not loud.
Yep.
You're never going to see them on Instagram.
Never.
You know, so.
Yeah, some of my heaviest hitters are absolutely that way. You would never know the most humble beings on earth. They don't think they're great. And that is the person I want alongside of me every damn day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Chris, anytime I've talked about this in public or any class, I always do 2 things. Like when I'm in smaller departments than us, where they don't get 35 members on scene in 5 minutes, I always say the smaller departments got to be better at the job than us.
Oh, big time.
They don't get as much people. They don't have as much specific tasks to do. They got to do everything.
Yeah.
You got to be better than, smaller department firefighters got to be better than the big city firefighters. But we get all the credit and glory because we have 3 fires a night and they have 3 fires a month or a year for some of them. It doesn't mean most of them are way better than me. I can guarantee you that. I have a lot of family in the suburban fire department, some of my best friends. And the other thing I ask everyone in the room, like, who in here is an instructor? And like this 3 or 4 people that took the state class raised their hand. and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, everyone's hand should be up except for the one person in the room that doesn't have anyone underneath them.
Yeah.
We're all instructors. Unless you're the newest of the new guy with no seniority, nothing, everyone else is an instructor. And I say that because I'm really actually talking to the instructors because, like I said, I go down and teach several academies, 5 or 6 now. If you're going to go down there and tell all these new people, check your pack with it on your back, here's why. So it's orientated right. And when you go to hit your red panic button, it's where it is. When you go to shut it off, it's, the purge valves where it is. If you're an instructor, and I harp on these kids or new members for 16 weeks to wear their shit when they check their pack. And then we get a lot of subbers or the new guys walking by as I'm checking my pack on the squad and it's sitting in the seat in front of me or it's hanging in the bracket. They're going to discount everything I've told them for that 16 weeks. They're like, this guy's fucking full of shit. He doesn't even do what he says.
Right.
So I would implore anyone that's going to teach or wants to teach, if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. Don't teach something you don't fucking do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to teach you on rural water supply. Like, I don't know, porta tanks and all that. Like I used to, if I was still at a department that did that, like I was 23 years ago or whatever. Yeah, that may be, but I'm not going to teach you that. Like don't stop being pretenders and walk the walk. If you're going to teach new members, you better do what the hell you teach.
Yes.
Or they're going to see right through it and they're going to discount all the good stuff you did teach during that whole time just by one thing as silly as not putting the pack on your back to check it in the morning.
Yeah. You have to live the example. You absolutely have to live it.
And surround yourself with people that are going to call you out because we all have bad days.
Yeah.
We all surround yourself with, like Chris said, I've gotten calls from Chris. He's gotten calls from me. What the fuck? You didn't clean the saw. You didn't put a new blade on the saw.
Yeah, the saw's missing 2 teeth.
Like, hey, the tick battery's dead. Like, that's just how we are. Surround yourself with the people that are going to call you on your bullshit. My best friend Tim, who's, like I said, one of the best firemen I've worked with. He was there. You heard about him in all the stories. Dude, if I miss a couple workouts, he calls me. He follows my fucking Garmin. And he'll call me like, you haven't worked out in 2 days. What's up, bro? Like, oh, hey, you can eat my shit for a week. Vacation's over with. Get back on it. Because it's a constant struggle with me. And surround yourself with people that are going to make you uncomfortable and call you on your bullshit. It's the best thing I've ever done.
I fucking love
agree.
that, man.
We're all products of our environment.
Yes. We're the sum of our parts. And you can't take that personally either. Like that's one of the greatest signs. Like I'm not trying to be fluffy here. Like what greatest signs of love between like you and your shift and your men is having that personality that cares about you enough to call you on that shit. Like it's not a demeaning thing. It's a highest form of respect in our job, man.
Like we both keep bringing up this guy named Tim. He's one of the. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best. I mean, he will humble you in about 2.3 seconds. Light speed right to the feels.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, and Jeff's another one too, man. I mean, me and Jeff been around the world. Shit, we've been to Africa and back. And we all absolutely just kind of all help each other. And it's cool to be all in the same company, and just to be around people like that.
I just want to point out I beat Tim in a rower workout. So I'm 6'5", he's 5'8" or whatever. So, but that's the only workout I've ever been able to beat him. And that's the only workout. I was laying on the floor getting ready to pass out afterwards, but I got him one time out of maybe 1,000.
Yeah, right. Guys, I don't know about you. I'm like fired up just for the fire service. I go back tomorrow after a week, and I'm amped, just hanging out and talking with you guys. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time and, man, just giving me the good stuff here. If anybody did, well, first of all, you don't have to give any information at all. So that way people leave you alone. If anybody did want to reach out to you, like I know Chris, you and Lex got your thing, which has been phenomenal. I've learned a ton. What's you want to preach on that really quick before we close out?
Oh, just about like what me and Lex do.
Yeah. You with Legacy.
Nah, man. Hey, Lamborghinis ain't got commercials, man.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'll do it on my own under the social media.
Nobody has to remember my name, all right?
Yeah, it's all good, dude.
You want to remember.
I want to wrap up that, I'm out there if you got questions. I don't hide my name on social media. Yeah. You can friend me. You get my number from you or Chris. I don't mind if people reach out. If I don't want to talk, I won't talk. And if I can, I'll probably talk your ear off while I'm driving somewhere. But I've been fortunate to have opportunities to teach for several local companies that I wanted to at least mention. I'll take a shameless plug, unlike Chris. I teach for Engine House Training out of Missouri, Total Technical Rescue Solutions out of the St. Louis area. We do a lot of rescue training and O'Byrne fireground training out of Missouri. I got some best friends there that gave me the start teaching in the state. And if you need classes or, check any of those organizations out, we'll get something together for you. It'd be a good time.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And when you get bored, just check out Legacy Firefighting, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Chris and Lex got a great thing going on.
They really do.
Chris was getting ready to get social media big-headedness until Lex came in and straightened him out. She's turned that company around.
Yeah, right.
I tell you what, hey, we didn't hit on that, man. Is the support you got at home, man. Get yourself a rock star at home, dude. Jeff has Stacy, Josh. I know you're hooked up, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like get a rock star for management.
I thought I did hit on it, but I love my wife and kids. And
you're right.
From the get-go, she's let me go take conferences and classes and pick up overtime, and because we all want to be at work. I mean, we're here for a reason. So I want to do the job, and she's been great throughout the whole thing. I'm pretty blessed.
I feel that, man.
Me too.
Biggest support network, and also my outside of myself, my next hardest critic in all the right ways, in all the best ways. But
dude, I wouldn't even be here if she didn't IT the shit out of my computer to make it work. So